First contact's miscalculation. The stars hung like distant lanterns in the velvet darkness of space as Captain Alina Reyes stood at the viewport of the Horizon, Earth's diplomatic vessel. Her reflection stared back at her, dark eyes steady, uniform crisp despite the 17 hours she'd been wearing it. Behind her, the bridge hummed with the quiet efficiency of a crew that had served together through humanity's most turbulent decade of space exploration. "They're right on schedule," said Commander Jackson, her XO, as he approached. His tablet displayed a cluster of energy signatures emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the neutral zone. The HFY certainly know how to make an entrance. Elena nodded, her expression betraying nothing of the tension coiling in her stomach. Humanity's first official diplomatic contact with the HFY Empire had been years in the making. Intelligence reports painted them as aggressive expansionists with technology that rivaled Earth's, but with far less restraint in using it. "Let's hope they're as interested in diplomacy as their messages suggested," she replied, straightening her collar. "All stations, prepare for contact protocol." Lieutenant Chen opened the observation bay shields. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The massive armored panels retracted, revealing a section of space that suddenly flashed with brilliant purple light. A rift tore open the darkness, and through it emerged the HFY flagship, the Imperial Subjugator. Even Alina couldn't suppress a raised eyebrow. The alien vessel was magnificent, sleek obsidian surfaces that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the starlight, elegant curves that suggested both speed and deadly purpose. It was easily 3 times the size of the Horizon, and its hull bore elaborate patterns that glowed with emerald energy. Behind it came 5 more vessels, smaller but no less impressive, arranged in perfect formation. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Lieutenant Chen said, her fingers dancing across her console. It's quite the introduction." "Put it on screen," Alina ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing a being that resembled a cross between a panther and a mantis, glossy black exoskeleton covering a lithe, powerful form. 7 luminescent eyes formed a crescent across what could be called a face, and when it spoke, 4 mandibles clicked rhythmically. "Humans of Earth," the translator rendered in a voice deep enough to vibrate the deck plates. "I am High Commander Zithkera of the Eternal HFY Empire. You gaze now upon the Imperial Subjugator, the most formidable warship ever constructed in the known galaxies. We have conquered 37 star systems, subjugated 18 species, and never known defeat. Consider yourselves privileged to witness such power." Elena felt Jackson tense beside her. The crew exchanged glances, but she kept her gaze steady on the screen. "High Commander," she replied calmly, "on behalf of Earth and the United Nations Space Command, I welcome you to neutral territory. I am Captain Alina Reyes of the diplomatic vessel Horizon. We look forward to productive discussions about the possibility of peaceful relations between our peoples." The alien commander's mandibles clicked rapidly. Laughter, perhaps. "Diplomacy is the privilege of equals," Captain Zithkera said, "or the necessity of the weak. The Imperial Subjugator alone carries enough firepower to reduce your homeworld to molten slag. Our smallest escort vessels outmatch your pitiful ship in every metric. But the HFY are magnanimous in our strength. We offer you the opportunity to negotiate the terms of your species' integration into our empire." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "That's a generous offer, High Commander. But perhaps there's been a misunderstanding about our respective positions." She nodded to Commander Jackson, who tapped a series of commands into his console. "Before we begin formal discussions, I believe it's customary to share a full accounting of the delegations present." Elena continued, "You've shown us your impressive flagship and escort vessels. Allow me to introduce the full human contingent." At the edge of the system, stealth fields simultaneously deactivated. On the tactical display visible to both delegations, dozens of signatures suddenly appeared. A fleet that had been there all along, silent and invisible until this moment. First came the UNSC Thermopylae, a Titan-class dreadnought whose mass rivaled small moons, its hull scarred from conflicts humanity had never shared with the galactic community. Then the Defiance, Resilience, and Indomitable, supercarriers that housed hundreds of strike craft. They were followed by battle cruisers, destroyers, and specialized combat vessels of every classification, each positioned strategically to surround the meeting point. "Impossible," one of the HFY officers hissed in the background. Our scans detected nothing. Elena kept her posture relaxed, almost casual. "As you can see, High Commander, humanity comes to this meeting well represented. We have 47 capital ships currently present, and I should note this is merely our diplomatic escort, not even a full battle group." The silence that followed was profound. Zithkara's luminescent eyes narrowed to slits. "You concealed your fleet," the High Commander finally said, accusation heavy in the translated voice. "Not at all," Elena replied. "We simply didn't announce their presence, just as you didn't mention the 3 heavy cruisers waiting in the shadow of the 5th planet's moon. Trust is earned in small steps, wouldn't you agree?" Another silence, longer this time. The HFY officers behind their commander were visibly agitated now, chittering among themselves and gesturing at displays beyond the transmission field. "Your stealth technology should not be possible," Zithkara finally said. "Our sensors are the most advanced in the known galaxy." "Were," Commander Jackson muttered under his breath. Elena shot him a quick glance before addressing the aliens again. "High Commander, humanity has survived over 100 years of space exploration and colonization because we learned early that it's better to be underestimated than overestimated. We don't build our ships for display. We build them for function." She tapped her console, and the tactical display highlighted the human fleet's specifications, weapon systems, shield capabilities, engine outputs, all carefully selected to communicate capability without revealing everything. "The Imperial Subjugator is indeed magnificent," Elena continued, "but the UNSC Thermopylae carries enough firepower to reduce it to its component atoms in approximately 93 seconds, and unlike your vessels, ours don't need to be beautiful. They just need to work when everything else has failed." The bridge of the horizon remained silent as everyone watched the HFY commander. Zithkara's exoskeleton seemed to shift colors slightly, darkening around the edges, a physiological response that human intelligence hadn't documented yet. "You invite destruction with such provocations," Zithkara said, but the earlier confidence had ebbed from the alien's voice. "On the contrary," Elena replied, "I'm trying to prevent it. Diplomacy, as you correctly stated, is for equals. I'm simply establishing that we are, in fact, equals, perhaps even more than you anticipated. Now, shall we begin our discussion as 2 powerful species with much to offer one another? Or would you prefer to reconsider your approach to this historic meeting?" The HFY commander's secondary mandibles twitched in what the human xenopsychologists would later identify as extreme discomfort. The 7 eyes blinked in rapid sequence before Zithkara spoke again. "It seems the HFY Intelligence Directorate has incomplete information regarding Earth. This is unprecedented." There was a pause, filled with untranslatable clicking and hissing as the commander conferred with officers off-screen. "We will adjust our diplomatic protocols accordingly." Elena nodded, allowing herself to relax slightly. "I suggest we all take a brief recess, perhaps 2 hours to recalibrate our expectations of this meeting. We've prepared a detailed proposal for mutual non-aggression and limited cultural exchange as a starting point." Zithkara stared at her for several long seconds. 2 hours, the alien commander finally agreed. "The HFY Empire does not fear your fleet, Captain Reyes. Remember that. Nor does humanity fear yours, High Commander. That's precisely why diplomacy is our best path forward." The transmission cut, leaving the bridge of the horizon in momentary silence before a collective breath was released. "That went well," Commander Jackson said with a hint of sarcasm. "You think they'll come back shooting?" Elena turned from the viewport, her expression grim. 50-50. Alert all ships to maintain combat readiness, but no provocative movements. The next 2 hours will determine whether we're heading toward a new alliance or the first interstellar war in human history. She looked back at the alien flagship, its obsidian hull now seeming less impressive and more ominous against the backdrop of stars. They came expecting to negotiate our surrender, Lieutenant Chen said quietly. What do you think they'll come back with? Either respect or weapons hot, Elena replied. Let's hope their empire didn't build all those pretty ships just to lose them on their first encounter with us. As if in response, the Imperial subjugator slowly rotated, its weapon ports glowing with potential energy. The human fleet remained perfectly still, a silent promise of what would happen if diplomacy failed. The game had changed, and both sides knew it. The next move would determine the fate of two civilizations that had only just met, and possibly the galaxy beyond. The edge of war and understanding. Aboard the Imperial subjugator, chaos reigned. High Commander Zith Kara paced the length of the war chamber, exoskeleton shifting through shades of midnight blue to deep purple, colors that signaled extreme agitation to any HFY present. Impossible. The commander slammed a clawed appendage against the holographic display showing the human fleet. Our intelligence indicated they had barely expanded beyond their home system. How could they have built such a force without our knowledge? Sub-Commander Vex Moore, head of the Imperial Delegation's Intelligence Division, stood rigidly at attention. His normally lustrous carapace had dulled to an ashen gray, the HFY equivalent of a cold sweat. The humans employ some form of quantum state camouflage we've never encountered, Vex Moore explained, mandibles clicking nervously. Our preliminary analysis suggests they've been observing our empire for years while remaining completely undetected. Their technological capabilities far exceed our estimates. And their weapons? Zith Kara demanded. Unknown, but the energy signatures suggest frightening potential. The vessel they call Thermopyle appears to house a controlled singularity as its power source. That should be beyond any known species' capabilities. The High Commander chittered a sequence that the translator would have rendered as a particularly colorful curse. What about their homeworld? Their colonies? Their industrial capacity? Also unknown, Vex Moore admitted, his posture lowering in submission. Our intelligence was gathered primarily from intercepted communications and long-range observation. We never penetrated their core systems. Zith Kara turned to the command circle where 7 senior officers waited in tense silence. Options. Strategic Commander Ithlara stepped forward, her battle-scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. We could strike now, while we have the element of surprise. Our ships are already in combat formation, against a force that outnumbers us 3-1. Tactical Officer Myth Vin countered. A force with superior stealth technology and potentially superior weapons. That would be the last mistake of the Empire. The HFY do not retreat, Zith Kara hissed. The HFY also do not throw away ships and lives on pride alone, said an elder voice from the back of the chamber. Fleet Elder Cathan, a veteran of 17 campaigns, moved slowly into the light. His ancient exoskeleton was faded and cracked in places, but the 7 eyes still burned with fierce intelligence. High Commander, I have studied these humans since we first detected their transmissions decades ago. They are not like the other species we have encountered. They do not build for beauty or glory. They build for survival. And their history, what little we've decoded, suggests they know war in ways we cannot comprehend. On the main viewing screen, the human fleet remained in perfect formation, unnervingly still, patiently waiting. Explain, Zith Kara demanded. Cathan gestured, and the display shifted to show historical images gathered from Earth's broadcasts. Cities reduced to ash. Mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. Armies clashing across continents. Before they reached the stars, humans spent millennia fighting themselves with increasing ferocity. They developed weapons that could destroy their entire civilization, pointed them at each other, and somehow did not annihilate themselves. Instead, they emerged stronger, more united, more determined. The elder's voice grew softer, but no less intense. They are predators who turned their most destructive instincts into tools for advancement. While we conquered other worlds, they conquered themselves. That may prove the greater achievement. Silence fell over the war chamber. Zithkara's exoskeleton gradually shifted back to its normal obsidian sheen as the commander processed this assessment. You recommend diplomacy, then? After we have already claimed superiority, I recommend caution, Cathan replied, and learning more before we decide whether these humans are to be enemies or allies. Zithkara moved to respond when alarms suddenly blared throughout the vessel. The tactical display shifted, showing new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. Multiple unidentified vessels. Tactical Officer Myth Ven announced. Not human. Energy signatures match nothing in our database. Aboard the Horizon, Captain Reyes received the alerts simultaneously. Unknown contacts, bearing 227 Mark 45. Configuration unlike anything we've encountered. Not HFY design. They're charging weapons, Commander Jackson reported. Targeting both our fleet and the HFY. Alina's decision took less than a second. Open channel to the Imperial Subjugator. The screen flickered, showing High Commander Zithkara's command center in disarray. The alien commander looked up, seven eyes widening slightly at her appearance. High Commander, are you tracking these new arrivals? Alina asked without preamble. We are, Zithkara replied, mandibles clicking rapidly. They match no known species profile. Their weapon systems are charging, targeting both our fleets. We have approximately 3 minutes before they're in optimal firing range. Alina leaned forward. I propose an immediate temporary alliance against this unknown threat. Zithkara's secondary mandibles flared in what might have been surprise or respect. You would fight alongside us after our earlier exchange. We prefer to live in a galaxy where threats announce themselves before attacking, Alina replied with the ghost of a smile. Something we apparently have in common with the HFY. A moment passed, a moment where the future of two species hung in the balance, before Zithkara's exoskeleton rippled with a new color, one the humans hadn't seen before, a deep burnished gold. Transmitting tactical frequencies now, the HFY commander said. The Imperial Subjugator will coordinate with your thermopila. Confirmed. UNC Javelin and Peregrine groups will protect your flanks. Alina nodded to Lieutenant Chen, who immediately began coordinating the fleet movements. Let's show our uninvited guests why it's unwise to interrupt diplomatic negotiations. What followed was a battle that would later be studied in both human and HFY military academies for generations. The unknown attackers, later identified as autonomous harvest drones from a long-dead civilization, struck with overwhelming force, their crystalline vessels absorbing energy weapons and returning fire with devastating precision. But they had not anticipated what had seemed impossible hours before, humans and HFY fighting as one. The human vessels moved with brutal efficiency, their designs emphasizing function over form becoming suddenly clear. Where HFY ships were elegant and precise, human ships were redundant and resilient. When a human destroyer took damage that would have crippled a HFY vessel, it sealed off sections, rerouted power, and continued fighting with 80% combat effectiveness. In turn, the HFY's superior targeting systems and maneuverability complemented the humans' raw power. The Imperial Subjugator proved its worth not through size, but through the incredible accuracy of its main cannons, picking off enemy vessels with surgical precision, while human battleships absorbed and returned devastating broadsides. From the bridge of the Horizon, Alina coordinated with Zithkara directly, their initial antagonism forgotten in the rush of combat. Together, they executed a flawless pincer movement that trapped the alien drones between their combined fleets. Isolate that command vessel, Alina ordered, pointing to a larger crystalline ship at the center of the enemy formation. All ships, converging fire on my mark. The subjugator will create the opening, Zithkera added, mandibles clicking with what humans would later learn was battle excitement. Watch and learn, Captain. The HFY flagship surged forward, its elegant form suddenly deadly as concealed weapon ports opened along its hull. It fired a synchronized barrage that created a momentary gap in the enemy's defenses. Now, Elena commanded. 47 human vessels fired simultaneously, their combined energy weapons converging on a single point. The enemy command ship shattered like glass, fragments spinning out in a glittering cloud of destruction. Without central coordination, the remaining drone ships fell into disarray. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun, with the combined human HFY force methodically eliminating the remaining threats. When the last enemy vessel had been reduced to drifting particles, an unusual silence fell across both fleets. On the command channel, Elena and Zithkera regarded each other with new understanding. "Your ships," the HFY commander said finally, "are as ugly as they are effective." Elena laughed, a sound that caused several HFY officers to flinch in surprise. "And yours are more practical than they first appeared. Perhaps we both had misconceptions to overcome." The High Commander's exoskeleton rippled with that same burnished gold color. "Indeed, it seems the HFY Intelligence Directorate will require significant restructuring, and our diplomatic approach may need adjustment as well. If I may offer a suggestion," Elena said, "we might start over. No posturing, no threats. Just two species with much to learn from each other." Zithkera was silent for a moment, 7 eyes blinking in that sequential pattern. "The HFY do not easily admit error, Captain Reyes. But today has been educational. We would be willing to approach these negotiations from a position of mutual respect." "That's all we ask," Elena replied. "Although I'm curious, what does that gold color in your exoskeleton signify?" "Our xenobiologists haven't documented that response before." The alien commander seemed momentarily taken aback, mandibles clicking rapidly. "It is not commonly displayed. The closest human concept might be admiration for a worthy adversary, or perhaps the recognition of potential friendship." Elena smiled. "I think we can work with that." 3 days later, the first formal treaty between humanity and the HFY Empire was signed aboard the neutral station Harmony Point. The document, written in both English and the clicking script of the HFY, began with words that would eventually become famous throughout the galaxy. "Between the stars, there are many paths. Today, 2 travelers who might have passed as strangers, or worse, as enemies, choose instead to walk together a while, each bringing their unique strengths to light the way forward." In the years that followed, humanity's practical engineering would merge with HFY aesthetic precision to create vessels unlike any the galaxy had seen before. And when the true threats emerged from the darkness between stars, they would face not divided civilizations, but a unified force born from a misunderstanding that nearly led to war, and instead forged an alliance that would reshape the cosmos. Sometimes, Captain Reyes reflected on her final private conversation with High Commander Zithkera, after the treaty was signed, and before their fleets departed for their respective territories. "You never would have fired first," the HFY had said, not as a question, but as a realization. "No," Elena admitted. "Humanity has learned the hard way that starting wars is easier than ending them. But we would have finished it if necessary." "As would we," Zithkera replied, exoskeleton briefly flashing that burnished gold again. "It is fortunate for the galaxy that we found a better way." On that, at least, human and HFY agreed completely.